Metafix is a show that teaches you how to think in the metagame. I am not here to give you the answers, nor am I going to tell you how to win. Metafix teaches you how to play in the metagame and how to react around the metagame and what is in the metagame. If you're looking for the answers, try HC Realms, check the forums, they have all kinds of neat toys and tools and teams being brought up, and check the results of a lot of the ROC tournaments or any Worlds tournaments to see how teams played out and what teams were used for. I'm just here to help you think. Every episode I end with a phrase. That phrase is, practice makes your team better. But practice has to come with a certain level of quality. You have to have an understanding of the teams that you're playing when you're practicing, and you do have to have a certain level of understanding of the figures that you're going to be playing against, and make sure you understand your rulings. So when I say practice makes your team better, and this is kind of my PSA of that, always remember to be very attentive to everything the characters do that you're playing against. I often use the example that myself and Amber ran into last year where we were getting ourselves ready for Canadian Nationals, and we were not playing the New Mutants team base the way we thought that was being played. We were caught, I was definitely caught way off guard with exactly how it works, and the battles I was fighting against it were a lot tougher than I'd given them credit for because I wasn't getting myself set up properly. And that's my horror story of the whole thing is practice can practice can be great, but you got to ensure quality practice. And I can't stress that enough. Trying to be ready for everything is very difficult as well. The wild card does exist, and when I say the wild card, I'm not talking about somebody who's copying team abilities. I'm talking about some team you saw coming out that you did not plan for, something that came out of left field, just demolished you with no expectation. You had no idea it was coming. You had no idea it was there. You didn't even plan for it. And it's one of those things, you don't have to plan for the entirety of the team, but plan for the basis of the team. You kind of get what I'm saying. So if you go back 2 episodes, I was talking about power batteries. When I was talking about the power batteries, I was talking about the types of teams you build with them. And that's kind of the idea I'm getting at. Is right now the metagame is wide open. We have no research basis. For those of you who will be joining us at Canadian Nationals, we will have the American Nationals to go off of, and there will be several ROCs that will have been run with tactics, so we have an idea of what people are playing. So when you're practicing, what you have to plan for is probability of arrival. And when I say probability of arrival, I'm talking about what teams are you likely to see. The teams that you're likely to see are going to be the easiest ones to acquire. If you go back in time to this past season of ROC No Tactics tournaments, Kyle Rayner was a very prevalent character. And the reason for that is if you participated in War of Light, you had him. At 190 points, he was a very solid character. He was able to bring... I'm sorry, I say 190 because I always add that 10-point construct. He's just available. And being available is what made him really, really common in the game. So, if you go back to my episode, I said that you expect to see this green battery. He's a very, very relevant thing that's going to show up because a lot of people have it. As well, when you're looking at the ROC listings, don't limit yourself to what one. Limit yourself to the top 16, maybe the top 8 if you're going to limit yourself at all. The top 16 got there for a reason, and they all played those same teams. They got through the Swiss rounds, they played it very well. There might have been some weird stuff that happened in the Swiss rounds, such as dice rolls and everything like that once you get to the 16. But when it comes down to it, getting to the 16 took the same team to get there. So you have to consider all the teams that are there and consider what they do. And I'm not just talking what does the first click of the dial do. Look deep down that dial. See how it can maintain. Some characters have some really weird stuff occur to them towards the end of their dial. I've seen some support characters turn into monsters on the battlefield that opponents didn't see coming. And I've done it to people a lot. I've turned some characters into some really beastly things that they weren't really expecting. You know, nobody expected a 63-point Batman with 12 attack to have 14 attack and giant. A giant guy who's stealthy is a scary option. So when you're considering what you're playing against, consider what has been played, consider what's available, and when you build your team, the first thing you want to look at when you're starting to get ready to practice is what's going to beat my team. You can look at, oftentimes you can look at a team and say, I'm going to have a hard time with X. I'm going to have a hard time with Y. And you got to look at that and say, how much of a problem is X and Y going to be? For instance, is your team relying on a lot of free actions? This could be a problem for you. So this is the first thing you want to play against, because that could very well be a problem for you on a regular basis. So what will happen is this starts, when you understand that this beats your team, it starts at a high probability of win. But once you practice against it, it drops the probability of win because you're starting to learn the tricks around it. Knowing how to play around things is a very, very important step in becoming a really good player. Your team can, on paper, lose to something. So then it becomes the other on paper, of course, being the map, that you need to bring it. Can you bring it? Can you take an opposing team and that's supposed to beat you and has all the tools to beat you and turn it around on them? Can you outplay them? Can you position well? You have to understand all of these things when you're practicing. You can't just kind of go in and say, I can beat it because I have the better matchup. Goodness knows somebody came up with your team and decided that their practice rounds, they found a way to work around a team like yours. So that is what I got to say in a nutshell about, practice. It's a good thing, but ensure quality of it. Make sure you and your practice partners know what you're doing. And when you do have your practice partners, always ensure somebody takes the night to be the gauntlet. When I refer to the gauntlet, I'm not referring to the resource. I'm referring to an old standard of a guy would run through a bunch of people getting beaten by sticks with them. So the people beating the guy with sticks are the teams you got to play against. And one guy ends up playing that role every so often. But also give that guy a chance to run his stuff. Because if that guy is stuck sitting there being the only guy running the gauntlet for you, it's making your team great, but you're not helping your teammate. And that's another thing I kind of want to talk about in regards to how to be on a team. Because practice goes only so far, but you need people to practice with. And when you practice with other people who you're friendly with, you come up with builds with each other, it's very tempting to go into a tournament with their counter build and not tell them. Don't be that guy. Make sure your team knows going in that you've switched something up, so that your opponents, your teammates know that something's out there that could be a problem for them, or they might have taken out something that because they weren't worried about a certain problem, but you've all of a sudden decided to bring that problem. Be honest with your teammates, because it becomes an awkward car ride home when you built a team, you did all the practice work with it and with everybody, and that guy watched your team do well, and then we all knew that you had a certain problem with something, and that guy brings that problem without telling you. It's one of those manners things, Make sure you're really well acquainted with your team. When you're practicing, have a couple drinks with you. If you're not a big drinker, just have some snacks. Make it a social event, because you got to be friendly with each other, because you want these people to help you practice more and more and more. It's no good to have a team of people practicing if they're not friendly with each other. So that's all I got to say this week on regards to handling practice, handling a team, and all that kind of stuff. I'll see you guys next week when we talk more preparation for nationals, as we are getting ready for Canadian nationals. The opinions and thoughts brought to you in Metafix are not meant for the casual game at the table. Married with Clix is brought to you by Majestic's Heroclix Sales down in Costa Mesa, California. Right now, they're in the middle of storefront change. In the meantime, don't forget to check out their eBay store. If you check the link down below, they always have great Heroclix stuff at fantastic prices, and they'll ship just about anywhere.